Soxy Soxy.
Good morning, Tam Tam.
How is it in Los Angeles? I just wanted to say la 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 la.
Well, the walls are definitely closing in on me, but
Yes,
I did get a jump start on my fitness regime for the new year.
Oh,
you want to know? I did the shortest workout in my life. Do you want to know how long it was?
12 minutes.
Nope.
Was it sex? 8 minutes.
It was a 6-minute cardio workout, and I was sweating.
Okay, but yes, you will be sweating. But is 6 minutes enough?
I feel like I'm done for the day. I'm done.
It's the same with sex. It's like, you know what? After 3 minutes, I'm done for the day. I'm good. I don't need it to keep going. You know, they actually say that exercising for a shorter amount of time, but for a more intense amount of time, actually is better for you.
Yeah, that's what, right? And do it just really intense. Like, don't take breaks. Like, do it quick.
Yes.
Right? I think, and for
But it
moms
depends on your hormone cycle, though. Like, you're not supposed to be doing that before your period. Before your period, you're actually supposed to be doing yoga and more reflective things.
I feel like for me, I don't know if your body is the same way, but I feel like I have to do intense workouts to like see any sort of a change or even feel better. Like, I feel like I have to like profusely sweat.
I get that, but I do think that what a hormone specialist said, Elisa Vitti, she did say that if you work out too hard before your period, you're actually turning on fat cells. And I do believe that. I do believe right before your period, you actually don't feel like you want to work out that much. I mean, I know I don't. I feel like lethargic, you know? Yeah. And it's because your body is telling you something. And I think that we all need to be doing kumbaya yoga together. But I never think that you and I are on the same cycle. That's the problem. We need to be more in sync with our cycle, which you're supposed to sync up when you spend a lot of time with people.
I know, but we're always spending time together through Zoom. How are we going to sync up our cycles?
I don't know. Well, someone's cycle that I do want to sync up with. That was a really good segue.
Yep.
It's funny because on Pretty Little Liars, I didn't feel close to that many people, but every time Vanessa walked into a room, I don't know. I just like sparks. I just felt connected.
She lit up the room, right?
She lit up the room, which made me light up the room. There's something so special about her, and that's why she works all the time, and maybe why I don't work all the time. But she works all the time because there's a spark about her that is it is burning so bright. So that when she said she wanted to be on the show, I peed my pants just a little bit. Might be from pregnancy, might not be. Might be just from her. No, I said pregnancy. I'm not pregnant. From post-pregnancy. But welcome, Vanessa!
Yay! Vanessa, welcome!
Having me, and thank you for saying such very nice things. I feel the same way, Cameron. Like,
I feel like there's a connection
at work. I felt like very welcome.
Yeah. So you guys really hit it off when you guys were working together, huh?
Yeah, we didn't get to work together very much. I didn't really get to work very much on the show in general, but it's like, you're like, surprise, you have all these important things to do. And I'm like, I don't even know what's going on.
Yeah, you're like, I don't even know what my character is.
Yeah, that's right, because it was like highly secretive, right? Very secretive, yes.
Yeah. I mean, Marlene, I guess, told me a lot of things when I first got the job, when I very, very first got the job. Then kind of after that, it went all over the place and I didn't know what to do.
It's hard though sometimes. We were talking about this with Brant recently. It's like when you aren't, like in Blue Bloods, your character is very ingrained in that show, right? So it's like when your character comes in and out, sometimes you kind of feel like you don't have an anchor. And you don't know how to play the role as well as you could when you don't fully know all the things about your character. But that being said, you know, the show was made up it was a sum of all parts, right? So
Well, I worked on the show Damages with Ted Danson, with a bunch of people, you know, but Ted Danson said to me, because we would get the script at midnight the night before we would shoot the next day, which is nuts. And you just never knew what was going to happen. It was like twists and turns. And he just said, you just play what's on the page that day. And trust that the writers, like when a twist comes, if all of a sudden you're like now a bad guy, that'll just enhance your character. So that's how he would play it. And I was like, that's good. Smart idea.
It's hard to build layers around a character, though, if you're like, because in a scene, for people who aren't actors who are listening to the show, you always have to find kind of what's your intention, what's your motivation, like what do you want out of the scene. So you're sitting here and you're like, don't, if you're a bad guy, don't play the bad guy, right? Just play like, oh, you're misunderstood, right? What do you want? You want to be heard. You want something, and how are you going to do it? So if you want to be heard and seen, like, what are your tactics? What are all the things you're going to do? But if you don't know much about your character, it's really hard to play your intention.
Totally. I agree. I agree with that. I think that I often just go to insecurity. So like, whatever my insecurity is, if I'm playing a bad guy, I'm like, I'm gonna be totally insecure, and then I'm gonna top it with some energy and
yeah.
I would think it would be so much more fun to play the villain, right? Like to play the bad guy and explore those parts of you, like within yourself that you can't really express like on, day to day. Is that true? Is it more fun to play somebody who's like a little naughty and nasty versus like the good guy?
Well, like Tamara, and I wonder how you feel about this, because I think that there's, like you said, you don't know you're playing the bad guy.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
You might know you're being manipulative, or you might know that you're pulling strings, or you might know that you're lying or something, but you don't necessarily know that you're playing the bad guy. And so I think that it's not the same thing. You get to do cooler stuff when you're the bad guy.
Mm-hmm. I do think that, like, for me, people go like, what's the best, like, what characters do you like to play? I just like characters that have a secret. They don't have to be bad. They don't have to be good. They just have something. And all people do. Like, we all suffer from something, right? So everyone has something deep down that they're trying to conceal. And they're trying, like, don't find this out, right? But my husband, who I think is a brilliant actor, who doesn't act anymore, he actually, used to be off Broadway, and he has a degree at like a fine arts, and he's like my best acting coach. And he always said it's so much more interesting watching a character that has a secret that they're trying to conceal at all times than just watching someone who's just playing the scene. It's always, because everyone has, even the good guy has something that they're hiding, that they're trying to like not show. But yeah, like when you say, like, is it good to play, better to play a villain or not a villain? I think it's just better to play someone who's dealing with something.
At a deeper level. Yeah. Well, did you guys know that apparently Ghislaine Maxwell was a fan of Pretty Little Liars? In fact, do you know what her alias was as she would check into hotels? Have you heard this?
No.
What her alias was? Her alias was Jenna Marshall.
Are you joking?
No.
What?
Yes.
I'm officially really successful. So Vanessa, it's funny because I did a deep dive. I know everything about your life.
God, I don't know what is on the internet. I don't know what's
and I felt really connected to you last night. Like, I was really struggling last night. It was midnight, and I didn't go to bed till 1:00. And I was like just looking through your stuff, and I have self-diagnosed, but I'm really sure that I'm 1 second away from being actually diagnosed with ADHD, which is like an attention deficit disorder. And if people think that ADHD or ADD is just something, like, people are not paying attention, right? But it's actually much hard. Like, it's much more in depth than that. It's when, I walk into a kitchen sometimes, not sometimes, most of the time, and if there's stuff on the table or there's too much clutter, I'm paralyzed. I can't physically go and get the spoon from the dishwasher and use the spoon, because that is just, my brain starts to short circuit, right? It's just like there's too much going on, and I just can't do it. I just recently started grocery shopping for the first time because just too much. When I would walk in, there'd be too many lights, too much action, too much of that. So like last night, I've been really suffering with like concentration and like feeling like my brain is just not connecting to things. And then I read your post last night about you officially saying that you suffer from bipolar. And I really think that by doing that, not only did you make me feel less alone, you've made so many people feel less alone. But I want to go through that whole experience. Like, when did you know something was different, or did you always feel like I did? I thought everyone walked into a kitchen and felt paralyzed to get the spoon, and because there was so much mess, but a lot of people don't. A lot of people just go and get the spoon and it's not an issue. But I thought that everyone felt that way. And you said in your post that, oh, I thought everyone felt the things that I felt. So when did you start to feel like something was different?
Well, I would say, they say that often, like with bipolar, there's a break. There's something that happens to you that ignites that. And it usually happens in your teenage years. And that was definitely true for me. I was at odds with my family, and I had a boyfriend, and it was not great there. And it was, sex before marriage. And in my household, that was really not good. And so there was all of these different, lots of shame, and, and I was very volatile. And I think that, I'd always kind of had some element of that. And in fact, I see it in kids that I'm like kids that are close to. I'm like, I see you. I see where this is going. But I think, so my family was just kind of always like, oh, this is just Ness. This is just how she is. And she's going to lose it. She's not going to sleep for 4 days. Great. Here we go. She's on one. And then, why won't she talk to us? Like, I guess she needs to sleep. Like, I guess that's just what it is. And it wasn't like they were neglectful or anything. It just was like, mother's mother had lived with it for so long that I think that, like, my mom's like, oh, that's just people. For her, I think she also was like, oh, that's just people. And so I think for me, it's that it got to a point after I was married and everything, where it was so unmanageable and I was so afraid of my own self. And that's the thing that would happen to me, is I didn't want to get too close to somebody because I wouldn't want them to know my crazy. And then the people I would get really close to, they would see it all the time. And it was a lot to handle. That's kind of unbearable when, like, your best friend shows up one day and is like freaking on natural cocaine. And then the next time they won't call you back for 2 weeks, and I can't focus and I can't be connected to anybody. And so being an actor, that was another part of it, where I was really scared I would just play a role. I just play a part. I'm nice. Like, you know what I mean? Like, hey, I'm going to show up to work and I'm grateful to be here, which is true. And I'm just to be nice, which is true. But I don't want to get too close. And it was interesting because whenever I would talk to you, Tam, and like, you would bring up real shit. And I was like,
oh God, sorry.
God, this woman can't get away from it. She wants the truth. And like, I was so nervous because I just think that's you have such a great knack for that. And you're so unashamed and open about who you are. And you're so open about your kids and your husband and all those things. And I think there's a part of me has like always wanted to be like that. And I admire it so much. And I think I just felt like I had so many demons and things that I couldn't control. I didn't, when I went away to a mental institution and we started working on stuff, I like literally had a list from my therapist, and I was like, okay, when is it okay to yell at somebody? And she's like, never. And I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah.
She's like, I'm like, under this circumstance, how would I behave in the grocery store? And like I literally needed to be put together piece by piece because I didn't trust anything that I knew. And right before that all kind of happened, I sort of like overdosed on a drug, and it was real scary. And I think that was sort of the moment where I said to a friend, like, I can't do this. I don't know what to do. And I know I can stop doing this. I just don't know what's on the other side of the person. You know what I mean? Like, who's on the other side? I really didn't know. And so when Blue Bloods was fantastic, and they let me go and work on myself, and they didn't put a time limit on it, and they understood. And not everybody knew what was happening, just my producers knew, and they were just freaking, CBS was amazing. They really were amazing, and let me take the time. And then when I came back to the real world, Landon and my husband and I had to have a ton of therapy as well within that, because here I am changing, starting to take accountability for myself, trying to be present and all of those things. And my husband is someone who takes care of everything. He has the schedule, he has the calendar, he's the one that has his shit together. And so all of a sudden when I was like, no, I don't need your help. It was difficult in our marriage. And it was the question of whether or not either of us wanted to be in a marriage where we've completely flipped the script. Like, do I still want to be with this person that, now all of a sudden she's just going to be off by herself, or like, I don't want to be with someone he's not controlling, but like that sort of thing.
Of course. Yeah.
Caring, overly caring, overbearing. And, because I would tend to attract people like that.
You attract the people that make you feel like you can function.
Yes, exactly. That's a great, yes. You can attract the people that make you feel like you can function. And so when I was functioning differently, it was a challenge. And ultimately we've come out on the other side, thanks to Codependent No More. That's a great book. Everybody should read it and pick it up. And we just worked through it. And now we're able to communicate in a way where I'm like, I do not need your help on this. And he goes, oh, okay, got it.
So you had mentioned the drugs and alcohol, played a part in really turning the corner for you. But before that, were you using it on a sort of a daily basis to just medicate and numb yourself and not feel, or how involved was it in your life, the drugs and the alcohol?
Yeah, it was a slow progression. I never drank when I was in high school, or, because it's illegal.
My
upbringing was like, you don't drink till you're 21 because otherwise it's illegal, and you could take a drink of that beer and the cops will come and they'll take you in handcuffs. So I was very straight-laced in that way, and rarely, 2 or 3 times a year had a glass of wine or whatever, some fruity drink probably. And then when I moved to New York, that was all of a sudden it was oh, you go out every night. That's just the thing. They're like, here's your alcoholic card. That's just living in New York. And not I wouldn't identify as an alcoholic, but they, but it was you go out every night. And I didn't really know, I don't do well with, what's the word? Not restrictions, but management. I'm not very good at going, okay, I'm going to have 3 chocolate chip cookies today, but I'm no, I don't need I don't need a special treat every day, that kind of thing. And, so it wasn't it really was just sort of, but also, sorry, I should say this too. Also, I started working right away when I moved to New York, that was the first time I'd ever got a great agent, and I was working. So there's an element to it where I was working so much that I didn't have time to go out, and I didn't want to feel good the next day. And, that it was, at one point I was doing a Broadway show, and I needed to sing. I'm not going to go out after that, so it was easier to manage. I had a lot of things to distract me from, like I said, from myself. And then, I got on Blue Bloods, and then it just happened to be a season where I wasn't working a ton. I was in every episode, but I just wasn't working a ton, and it was idle hands. It was a real idle hand situation where I had my husband and I are still doing, we're bi-coastal, so he lives in LA, I live here. And so there was just time. I'm not great alone, when I'm alone, I can whether I could use anything. It could be food, it could be alcohol, it could be cocaine, it could be whatever it is, and I would just go for it. And then it just came to a place where I was like, I don't want to. I wanted to stop, but I didn't know what was going to take its place, right? It became, because its place was work for me before.
Yeah.
So I didn't have time to do all that stuff because I had work. I had busy all the time, auditioning, all that kind of stuff. And then you get on a series, and then sometimes they don't need you every day of the week. And so that was, I'm like, there's a part of me still that deals with a bit of shame around that, where I'm like, why couldn't I grow up faster? Why couldn't I have just, gotten my shit together? Why couldn't I have gotten into needlepoint or something like?
Because you were sick and it wasn't your fault.
Yeah.
That is true. That's true. And I think that it just, everything was really scary to me. Everything was really scary. And I needed something to make me unaware of the state I was in. And it was real bad with my husband. We just got married too. I mean, it was like nuts. We just got married, and it was just, and we'd been together for 10 years, And and it was bad with my friends. I would, go to a bar and like be the girl crying at the bar that you cut me off and you're not understanding me. And like, I just was a fucking mess. It's so embarrassing. But I'm actually really grateful that it got that bad. If it hadn't, I could have just kept masking it. And I eventually, would have trained the people around me, like you said, like to take care of me and do the things and I would be fine that way. And so I'm ultimately grateful for it, but it was an ugly road. I was ugly.
There's so much to unpack, and it's interesting because now I realize why I was so connected to you. There's so many things that you said that just like, oh my God, a light blow. I'm not good alone. I don't know how to be alone. I'm scared of being alone. I'm scared of my mind when I'm alone. Not that I think I'd do anything crazy. I'm not to that extent, but when your brain isn't firing the right way, you just don't want to be left with those thoughts. And so I haven't worked because I've had both my kids and then COVID. And it's affected my.
Are you kidding? You're doing this. You're always working.
I mean, but it's affected my self-worth. It's affected my self-esteem. It's affected the way I'm in my relationship. Like you said these things and I was like, oh my God, the last 48 hours, I've been so fucking needy. And I don't want to be, how can I be this old and still be needy? Like fucking grow up, Tim. And like at some point, be an adult. And I don't know when that, maybe it's just a misnomer. Maybe there is no such thing as like, you're all of a sudden, you'll be an adult when you hit a certain age. Maybe this is just parts of you that you have to start healing, but like you have to, and like you said, mine's never gotten so, like I had all these miscarriages and that got pretty bad, but it didn't get so bad that I needed everyone to come around. Like I needed to go away somewhere and fix myself. So it's always been teetering. And it's weird. Like how bad does it get until you go, I'm going to fix myself,
I think that for me to go fix myself, it was like, I felt so broken all over the place that I didn't know what to do. I was real scared and I was panicked. And I think for me, that was the reason I went on that path. And I knew that if I didn't dive in, I wouldn't survive. I wouldn't do it. You know what I mean? I was not there. And I think that for me, I was scared I was going to die. That's what brought me to that. I was like, I am either going to jump off of a bridge myself or I'm going to do something stupid one night and I'm not going to come home.
Yeah.
Like that's what.
Do you think that, did you have, because oftentimes on the show, we talk about helpers and people that help you along the way, and they may come into your life and come out of your life at certain points. But did you have somebody that helped you make that next step to actually going away and getting help? Or was this something you kind of just did on your own?
It was sort of, there was one distinct conversation I had with my friend Tracy Weiler. And I was sitting on the couch with her and I just was crying over nothing. I didn't know that I was even crying. And I said, I'm really sad. I'm really, really sad. And I don't know how to stop feeling sad. And she said, okay, is this something that do we just need to find a therapist or is this bigger than that? And I said, I think it's bigger than that. And she said, great. Okay, let's start looking in. And it was not even, this is even where I went, but she was like, okay, let's look for somewhere in Palm Springs. Like she gave me a bit of a direction. I was like, oh, I could go somewhere like Palm Springs. That sounds great. And and then from there, then I got really sick, and it was the holidays, and I was like, just trying to figure it out, and I found somewhere to go, and it was real scary. Like, I went with my best friends Eric and Kelly and Landon, and they took me and dropped me off, and that was that. So I don't know, it was weird, but for me, but damn it, I had different things. Like, I don't have kids and that sort of pressure, but you're not alone. That is a very normal feeling to feel needy at times.
Right.
Still, I'm still needy sometimes with my husband.
I think it's beyond that, though. Like, I worry that, like, if something happened to my husband, like, I don't know if I'd be okay. Like, I'd always have backstop. Like, there's always someone there for me. There was always, a husband or a boyfriend or my parents, or there's always someone that if I fell, they would pick me up. And what happens when you get older, like we all do, and, knock on wood, not soon, but at some point your parents aren't there anymore, and your kids grow up, and your husband, what if something happens to him? He's 12 years older and it's just me. Am I okay to live stripped down, just who I am, standing there and be okay with who I am? And I don't know that yet. I don't know who I am without these people around me. And that scares me. Like, I look at Roxy, and I know Roxy, we've known each other for a long time. I know that she can get on a fucking plane, go to, if she had to work in Berlin, do her thing. Like, I went to Berlin last year before COVID, and my suitcase got locked with a lock, right? And it was 2 a.m. in LA. And I called my husband hysterical saying, I don't know how to open the suitcase. And he's like, you're in Germany. Like, I can't help you. And I was like, but you have to help me. You have to fix this for me. And so what's happened is, what my husband and I do is, like, he fixes it. I have a problem and he deals with it. And so, like, I'm so used to him fixing my problems that I don't even know how to fucking fix them myself. It's not his fault. He's been used to that his whole life. And that's what he likes to do. He likes to take care of things, and I like to delegate.
Right.
So then who am I without that? And this is not like a big therapy session for me, but I'm just like, those are the things that I deal with on a day-to-day basis.
Listen, I still worry about that. I still worry about, like, the moments where I get locked out of my apartment and I don't know what to do. I'm listen, because I do that a lot, guys.
I do that too.
Together. But that's totally relatable. I mean, you should read the book. It's pretty good. Codependent No More. It'll really knock your socks off. It was the only thing for my husband that it was like, everybody was like, Landon, you have cancer. And he's like, what are you talking about? I feel fine. They're like, no, you have cancer. And he's like, you guys are crazy. And then it wasn't until he saw an x-ray, right, that he's like, I have cancer. He doesn't really have cancer, but but he has codependency. And so it was finally when he read this book that he went, oh my gosh, I'm sick. I didn't know that I had a part in any of this. And so that was a big thing for us, but it's baby steps. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, I'm going to pay these bills this month, and I'm going to buy this. I don't know what I'm talking about, but just like
it's
that I'm
one step forward, 5 steps forward, sometimes 4 steps back. But as long as you're continuing the want to fix yourself, right? Isn't that what it's about? It's the desire to be better.
Yes, I think that's it. Like, there are plenty of people who are in therapy. There are plenty of people who are, dealing with drug addiction and alcohol and all the things. But the ones that you see that want to live, that's different.
I think It seems like also not getting too overwhelmed, like you were saying, and taking the baby steps. But if you do fuck up, which everybody does, it's also having grace with yourself, right? And saying, okay, you know what? I fucked up, but tomorrow's a new day. I'm going to pick myself back up again. And I mean, I'm sure it's like easier said than done a lot of the time, but it's kind of keeping that mindset. It seems like that forward thinking mindset, right?
Right. It's mindfulness, and it's looking forward, and it's saying, it just, if you screwed up 5 seconds ago, you go, in the past, I did something, and in the future, I'm not going to do that again. It's sort of it's like a 3-step apology to yourself, where you say, I recognize that you feel this way. I recognize that I did this thing, and I'm never going to do it again. And like, you just do that, and you pick up and you move to the next thing. And, I think, I don't know. I think that it's the grace with yourself and loving yourself and all that. I'll say it till the day I die. Like, that is the name of the game. That is the whole point of all of this, is to be able to love yourself the way that others love you, I think.
It's so hard sometimes, though, right? It's so hard to love yourself.
Bipolar is... Sorry, you go.
Oh, no, go.
I was going to say bipolar is something that not a lot of people, I think, people can self-diagnose themselves and say, well, I felt so depressed like last week, and right now I've got lots of energy. But what is bipolar? Like, how do you know that you could suffer from it? And what are things that make it better for people and that have made it better for you?
What is bipolar is a big question. I don't know perfectly how to answer it, but it is, you tend to have a cortisol rush that happens, and it can come out in different ways. It can come out in anger. It can come out in joy and silliness. And like, most bipolar people are probably the most fun people there's a brightness and like a light that comes, and then you can truly feel it start to leave your body. You start, and that's Anne Hathaway did a great episode of this show, Love, and I'd never seen anybody depict bipolar better than that, where she was feeling herself, and you're like out in the world, and you could talk to anybody, and nobody's a stranger, and you believe in yourself, and you believe in the world, and it's just great. And then it's like you feel the blood start leaving your hands and your head and your body, and it's just, and you go, no, please don't come, please don't come, please don't come, please don't come. And then you're suicidal, you're unable to focus, you want to sleep all the time, you just things feel very heavy. And the best way to handle that is, for me, has been medication. And so that's, medication's changed my life. I mean, there's things that are annoying about medication. Like, I have dry mouth all the time, but I also don't like not come home for 3 days. Like, that's good. That's a positive. And I think that there are things that I have to do every day physically to combat it. Some sort of, if I could do a 6-minute exercise, I'm gonna
send it to you. I think it's legit.
Goodness, that sounds like a dream. But, there is something about like sweating and getting your endorphins up and all that stuff is very good for me. It's really important to me that I'm connected to other people. That's a big one for me, because I can get real on those days when it gets real dark. I'm useless. I feel like I do. I feel like I'd rather just sleep till I never came back. It can be really bad. I haven't had one of those days in a long time, because of different tools that I have. But it is connection for me. It really helps combat that in a big way. And it can't just be Landon. It can't just be my husband who's in charge. Therapy, obviously, keeping an eye on myself like trusting myself. Those are kind of the base tools that have helped me. Meditation helps me as well. I'm not perfect at it. I'm never going to be perfect at any of these tools. But I still, like, after I wrote that post, Tammin, like the next day, I felt I had a bad day. I just was like, I feel like I'm a liar because I feel low and I feel dark and I feel ugly and boy, didn't I did not expect to feel that way the next day, and so I still have, like, there's still a high and low, but the baseline is pretty consistent. So that's kind of a long-winded way of describing what bipolar is, but it's just extremes. It's living to extremes on either end.
Medication as well. And I know, especially because, being creatives as we all are, and artists and actors, a lot of people they think they can't take medicine because it will dull their emotions and everything. Yeah. So how did that play out for you? Was there ever a point that you dealt with that, or was it just always pretty positive?
Yeah, I mean, that was a big thing for me, is I was so afraid that I was going to not be myself and not feel anything. That was a big lie, because I wasn't feeling anything before. So I was able to feel my feelings. I remember somebody in my family came to visit me, and I had just started medication, and they looked at me and they were like, "So, do you feel like drugged up? Like, do you feel like you're just like on another planet?" And I was like, "No, I finally feel like I'm on this planet, and I can actually like make toast in the morning and be okay. Like, I can take care of my day-to-day things." Like, "Oh, no, you don't understand. Before was when I felt crazy and disconnected. Now I actually feel more connected." And I'll say this for this. So this is what I kind of think in terms of how it's affected my acting career. I find that when I'm in better health, mental health, physical health, whatever, I can get out of the way and let that creativity do its thing. I can get out of the way and let the character do its thing. It's not so much about how do I think this character, I can just get out of the way. It's kind of like, I heard somebody say, if you go to work, what's the hardest thing about work? And it's like, the hardest thing about work is if home's not good. If I'm fighting with my husband and, my mom and dad are sick or something, that's when it's hard to be at work, because I'm not thinking of, I'm dealing with my own shit, and I can't get out of the way to just be present and I don't know if anybody, I believe in God. So like, sometimes you got to call and say, "Listen, I need to get out of my way right now." And I'm opening myself up to, because I think creativity is energy, and it's all of those things. Like, I'm real California right now, but, I just do think that. And, or it's always been true for me. So if I can get out of my way, sorry, I keep saying the same thing, but that's what I think. I think that if I take care of myself, I'm a much better actor.
I do think, how long you've been on medication? A couple of years now?
4 years in January.
Wow. Okay. Why did it take so long?
I came from a household that was really against it. When I was really young, they wanted to put me on, what's the ADHD one?
Ritalin or Adderall.
And so they wanted to do something like that when I was younger. And my parents said, no. I think the reality is we have come a long way with these medicines. We know much more than we did when I was a kid. And so I think my parents were really apprehensive. They were like, we don't want our like little butterfly daughter to stop running around being crazy. Like, we're fine. Again, it's like, it's fine. It's just Vanessa. They didn't want that. So I always had it in my mind that medicine was the enemy in a way. Like I didn't take Tylenol. I mean, now it's funny.
Same. I don't take anything. And I should have been on anti-anxiety medication 20 years ago.
A long time ago. Well, Atlanta will go, have a headache and I'll go take some Tylenol. And I'm like,
well, I'll take peppermint tea.
Take care of yourself. I'm like, oh, you can just do that? That's crazy. You know?
I'd be like, I'll just stand on my head. That's how, like, I don't need Tylenol.
Yeah, I can do a yoga pose and I'll be fine. Like, and I believe, listen, I think all those things still are valid and do work.
Yes.
However, for me, it was just sort of a way that I was brought up and the way that I thought that was, that I would lose myself if I was on medication. I mean, it's so funny when I go back over my life and I see the things I blew up. Like, that's the medication. That would have been cured with some medication. That would have been cured with some medication. I would have kept that job if I hadn't lost it, you know.
Right. When you started taking the medication, did you, like, is it instantaneous or is it like, does it take time? And were you scared? Like when you were taking it, were you like, oh my God, what's going to happen? Because I know bipolar also has that anxiety to it. So were you nervous about what it would make you feel? And then would you almost make yourself feel something that wasn't even there because you were making yourself feel it?
I can understand that feeling. That was not my experience. I felt really safe. And my therapist and psychologist worked really, really closely and really well together. And so my therapist was championing it the whole time. She's like, it's just when I would have a panic or whatever, she's like, it just hasn't started working yet. And it takes about a month to 3 months to fully be in your system and be working properly. So we started with, I take Wellbutrin and Lamictal. So I started with Wellbutrin, like rapid release throughout the day. Because I tend to be real low on the bipolar scale. I tend to, 2 rapid fire days to 5 hard days. Like that's sort of my balance. And some people it's the other way. They're just up, and then it's like 2 days of rest. So I started with the sort of, I also really liked uppers, anything that was an upper.
Same.
So I had to work with that. And that was kind of what helped with Wellbutrin. But no, I never, I'd given myself over. I mean, I went in with.
You accept it. Right, right.
I was like ready to do whatever I needed to do. And I did, it was a great place. I did a lot of different kinds of therapy. So I felt like it kept me active and not so in my head about, does this feel weird? What do I feel?
Right.
I wasn't so scared.
So when you were
scared,
Yeah. Absolutely. So when you were undiagnosed during that time, especially as a young adult and like coming into your own, how did the bipolarism affect your relationships? Because I know you were married previously. Did that play a big role in that relationship, or how did that pan out?
1,000,000%. Like that's one of the things that blew up. Because, and I mean, we got a divorce technically for different reasons, but in one of our like final kind of conversations, arguments, however it started and ended, he said, I don't know how to hold you when you're down. I don't know how to hold you. You have to find somebody that can do that because I can't. And that was sort of a tell. I was like, I'm nuts. I better find something to take care of. Something that can put up with this, basically. And because it, the 2 big loves of my life both fell in love with a really bright girl. A really, like adrenaline, that's what they fell in love with. And then with that came this whole other person. And, luckily Landon stuck it out with me. But I begrudged Derek nothing because he had to see that when it was really hatching, it was really starting to come up, and it was confusing for him, and it was hard on our marriage, and we were very, very young. We got married when I was 20, and were very in love and all of those things. But, ultimately we just, I think the number of times that I would act irrationally, throw things, scream, and all of those things, was not for him. It wasn't for it's not for anybody. But for him, he kind of had the wherewithal to say, like, that's not it. And we now all these years later, we love each other very much, and we can have a very long arms distance of relationship. But at the time, it's taken me years to go, oh, that was self-care.
Do you feel, if I was in the situation, and this is stuff I deal with, I would probably feel like shame that I wasn't able to get through what I had to get through for my first marriage. Did you ever feel like it was your fault?
Oh my, it was not. What I convinced myself was that it was not his fault. I don't hold grudges. I apologize quickly. I get in and out. It was actually really, really hard for me to look at what actually broke down our marriage, that it wasn't just my behaviors, that it was his behaviors as well. So I think that was tricky for sure. But it took me years. I mean, I was probably with Landon, but in one of the times where finally Landon was like, you're allowed to be mad about that. Like, you're allowed to be angry about that. I'm like, no. It was my fault. I was acting crazy, and he needed to do what he needed to do. And I was away, and I was disconnected. It was totally me, And he's like, you're allowed to say, like, that was shitty. I don't like that you did that. I don't like that. It took a long time because we were so young when we were together, and our families loved each other. So it would be like talking ill of my brother. It's like, I'm not gonna say something bad. Yeah. And so, but yeah, I definitely took on a lot of responsibility for that. Probably a little bit more than I needed to. But it was a way I was able to survive.
And as your marriage was ending and you're navigating a divorce right now at this point, but you're still like not totally diagnosed with your bipolarism. So how do you navigate like a divorce when you've got this sort of undiagnosed thing going on, and it's like, are you just kind of like checking out and trying to numb, or what are you doing?
Oh, I wasn't doing any of that stuff. I was acting like a crazy. I mean, I was like showing up at people's houses and throwing things. Like, I was not it was not great. It was real dangerous, as a matter of fact. I was like jumping and bouncing off of the walls at that time. And then I was
would ever have known, like, you came into Pretty Little Liars and you were just perfect.
Well,
like, you know what I mean? But like, but you know what I mean? Like, you're just there and you do your job and you do a good job and you're kind to people, and how no one would ever have known that girl was suffering.
You were just going into work as normal, right? Correct? Like working
But I think a lot of people in that show were suffering. The more that I talk to people, the more I realize that there was a lot of mental health issues going on that, we all just try to keep away because we're so worried about it affecting our jobs, and that's what we love to do. So we don't want to be seen in that way. We don't want to be seen as a burden.
Right.
So we keep it hidden.
Yeah. I have to be easy. Like, I don't want to be that girl, It's funny. Yeah. I was with some girlfriends the other day, and we were like, where were you 6 years ago? One of our friends has been married for 6 years, and we were, full of pictures, and we were like, oh man, not for all the money in the entire world would I go back to being that girl. Like, we didn't know how to communicate. We were, all best friends and stuff, but like, we didn't know how to say, hey, my boyfriend broke up with me yesterday. I'm not going to show up tomorrow. Instead of it being like, and the other person wouldn't know to go, totally get it. We got it. We'll pick up the slack. Then it would have been, I'm trying to show up. And then they're like, oh, you're such a flake. Like, it would be like, nobody would know how to communicate. And so I think that back then we just didn't know how to communicate.
Yeah, you didn't know.
We were all just running our own track at that time.
You guys feel like when you were on the set on Pretty Little Liars, did you ever feel pitted against one another? Like, was there ever a sense of that? Like,
No.
Yeah.
Not really. I'm just grateful for the whole experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I feel like it was a really cool experience. It was really cool to get to be on the Warner Brothers lot. Mm-hmm. That was really cool for me because I when I imagined being an actor on a TV show, I moved to New York and it was like snowing outside and it's freezing and you're just running to the elements and it was like, trial by fire. It was crazy. And then I moved to LA and the first job I got was Pretty Little Liars. Going to the Warner Brothers lot and someone gives me a nice coffee and they put medicines on me and I was like, this is something.
Would you be okay if you never worked again?
You guys, are you serious? You tried this today? This is amazing.
Would you be okay if you never got another job after this?
No. It wouldn't. No.
I know. Like, what do you do? Because some of us might never work again.
What are you talking about?
It's doomsday. It'll never happen.
Doomsday.
Oh, you're great. And you create things for yourself. And that is a skill that, boy, oh boy, do I have a fear I don't have. That's my fear. My fear is I follow through. You have follow through. You apply yourself. And I think there's a lot of creativity inside of me that I go, like I was going to start a podcast 4 years ago. I brought this mic and I didn't do one single thing with it.
You just have to do, I've realized with everything, just do one step. Instead of thinking about getting your movie on Netflix, just do one step. Just sit down and write the title.
Yeah, and keep coming back to it.
I'm so grateful that you've been here with us. Your words have saved lives, and you don't know, by telling your secrets and by realizing that they don't keep you safe or anyone else. We all change the world. It makes people feel less alone. It makes people feel like they're worth something. It makes people feel like they're not the only one who struggles. So the fact that you did this with us today, we are so grateful. And
so grateful.
Because we're so grateful, we're going to make you do a have I
ever. Yeah.
Thank you so much for
We're so excited you could be here. So for our YouTube viewers, please go to iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts so you can listen to Vanessa's Never Have I Ever, because that's the only place you're going to get it.
You only get one shot. This is it. So watch it. On that note, thank you so much for talking to us. And where can people find you, watch you, follow your journey? Tell us where they need to go.
Saturday nights at 10 p.m. And you can follow me on Instagram. My name is B Ray School. It's a friend of mine in high school used to call me B Ray School. I had no idea what social media was going to be. So that's I do have a Twitter account. I definitely forgot the password to it. So good luck. I have no idea what's happening on that platform. It's to Facebook. So really Instagram, that's your shot. Oh, and I also know how to sign into Snapchat, which is totally useless. But
amazing.
That's amazing.
Well, Rox, everyone needs to rate, subscribe, and
comments. Yes, on all your podcast platform places.
Yes. And we've just gone through the whole, I'm thinking about life and and everything. We are Women on Top Official on Instagram.
And we are Women on Top Podcast on Facebook.
And I am Tammin Sursock.
And I am Roxy Manning.
We are Women
on